Odysseus, after an exhausting 10 years of war, wants to go home, but what he couldn't expect was that the gods had other plans for him, making his journey home another 10 years. 7 years from this 10 years journey, he was held captive on an island with Calypso, a beautiful goddess who wanted him as a husband and promised him endless pleasure, comfort, and even immortality. What would you choose? Endless pleasure and comfort with a beautiful goddess, and on top of that, immortality? Or the dangerous and fragile and difficult journey home to the woman you married and loved? Odysseus chose the second option. And of course, Calypso, the beautiful goddess, couldn't understand his choice. So then, royal son of Laertes, Odysseus, man of exploits, still eager to leave at once and hurry back to your own home, your beloved native land. Good luck to you, even so, farewell. But if you only knew, down deep, what pains are fated to fill your cup before you reach that shore, you'd stay right here, preside in our house with me, and be immortal, much as you long to see your wife, the one you pine for all your days. And yet, I just might claim to be nothing less than she, neither in face nor figure. Hardly right is it for mortal woman to rival immortal goddess. Odysseus has to constantly choose if he wants to choose pleasure or the challenge, or comfort or the difficult way, mortality or immortality. Odysseus is always confronted with those questions. And now imagine you are like 10 years at war, you just want to go home. But after that war, you come to a beautiful goddess which offers you immortality, and not just that, she offers you also endless comfort and pleasure. And how fantastic is that after 10 years of war? But still, Odysseus keeps strong and he wants to go home to the woman he loved. And I think this is a fantastic little story, so to speak, where we can learn a lot from. Because he chose clearly love over lust, right? When he would just stay there with the endless pleasure or the endless sex Calypso could offer him, and probably even immortality, which is even a step higher point, he could just surrender to this, right? And this is, I think, in our modern times, extremely pressing topic. How many of us chose just the empty comfort, the empty pleasure, right? Instead of the meaningful struggle, the meaningful journey home. And this sounds now so cliche, right? Chose the journey away from this endless pleasure and this endless comfort. So he chose love over lust. Also, he chose mortality over immortality. Now, Calypso, of course, couldn't understand his decisions, because for Calypso, an immortal goddess, there is no challenge, there is no risk, because when you're immortal, you can't die. So the ultimate risk, death, is not there. So of course she can't understand his decision. But for Odysseus, he is mortal, right? Or he chose also the mortal way, because death is what gives one meaning. I don't know why he chose this way, right? But just my interpretation. And when we choose the mortal way, or like Odysseus chose the mortal way, then he has some urgency to act. He has to make his own life meaningful. Because when we're immortal, imagine a life full of comfort and pleasure, and every day you have some Candyland, or I don't know, some dream world of comfort, what many probably want, right? Even nowadays, many shows probably even Netflix and chill, right? This is exactly this, what we can compare it to. More than 2,000 years ago, this was already the topics people talked about, topics people had also in their lives. Of course, their comfort was nothing compared to our comfort, let's say. But Odysseus had the choice of the ultimate comfort with the immortal goddess. This is ultimate comfort, right? And he chose against it. So I think those little, this little side story, so to speak, with Calypso is a great parable, so to speak, where we can learn a lot from. And we can learn a lot from Odysseus, what decisions he took. And maybe when he would be still alive, he would probably ask, what way would you choose, modern human, or modern man, modern woman? He would probably ask us these questions. And then, what would you answer? After 10 years of hardships, Odysseus finally arrives home in Ithaca, his home island. The problem at home is that his wife Penelope, loyal to the end, has to every day deal with the suitors who want to marry her and feast each day in Odysseus' home. They plan also to kill Odysseus' son, Telemachus. So instead of going straight home, Odysseus, with the help of Athena, gets transformed into a beggar. In this form, he meets his faithful son, and both plot how they can kill the suitors. He goes to the halls and gets insulted and badly treated by the suitors. On top, some of his old staff members also treat him with disdain, all who will find their end at his hands. Now, in between, one beautiful little anecdote. when he was transformed as a beggar and he went to his old home, no one at all like recognized him. No one, like not even his son, not his old comrades, not the suitors, like also not his wife, and also not his old staff members. But the only creature, so to speak, who recognized him was his old loyal dog named Argos. He was laying there in the mud because he was 20 years old, he was nearly dying, and he was looking, sorry for the expression, like shit, basically. Like he couldn't even get up when he saw Odysseus. But he was the only creature who recognized Odysseus. He wagged his tail a little bit. And of course, Odysseus, when he saw that his old dog, that he remembered him, Odysseus was a little bit scared because like he didn't want that his whole like costume, or like so to speak, like his transformation as a beggar, that anyone else would notice that, right? Because it was all his plan, like to little bit see how the situation looks like at his house, and also to see which staff member was loyal to his house, or which staff member danced with the suitors who were at his house and were not loyal. So he was scared that his whole plan would fail because this dog recognized him. But the beauty of this is all that the dog recognized him, and this shows also the loyalty of dogs to humans. And I don't know if you have a dog, but I own a dog, and there's some special connection between a dog and a human, I would say. Of course, this is like sounds pretty romanticized, right? But the loyalty a dog gives one is something I think extremely pure and also extremely beautiful. Like we can't compare this, of course, relationship from a dog to a human, from like compared to a human to a human. This is totally different. This is like comparing apples and bananas. We can only like judge it by itself, but it's something extremely beautiful. And as Odysseus went next to the dog, as I said, the dog couldn't even stand up, and he just went on. Odysseus had to suppress one tear because, of course, he felt really emotional. And shortly after that, the dog died. So it was like a great analogy also to loyalty, to this trait of loyalty, and also that like of a connection between a dog to his old master, that he was like loyal to the end. And when Odysseus was home, the dog could like peacefully go like into another world or wherever, like he could peacefully die. So this is just a nice little anecdote, also like just 2-3 sentences in the book, but I find a really beautiful story. Okay, so let's go back to Odysseus transformed as a beggar, goes in his halls. He gets insulted by the suitors, even by some of his old staff members. He gets like mistreated, right? But of course, they just see him as a beggar. And he observed his old staff members there. He observed also all the suitors, and he, especially his old staff members, he observed because he wanted to find out, like what I said before, who is loyal and who is not loyal. And on all of these scenarios, this is rather at the end of the book, there are also some interesting moral questions or moral things we can like analyze from it. The first, for example, is how do you treat, for example, or how do we treat people who stand lower than us in like the hierarchy in society? We have everywhere hierarchies, right? It can be like the big hierarchy of money or something, or of status and power, but like we have also everywhere micro hierarchies. And let's take it now as a fact that we are organized in hierarchies, okay? Just for the argument. And let's say we are in some hierarchies at the top. How do we treat the members who are at the bottom, no matter how they look like, right? Like no matter who they are, how they look like, how do we treat them? And it shows a lot of people's character, like a person's character, how they treat the person at the bottom. And I think this is something we can extremely like, what we can learn from this Odyssey, that we see some people there, some of his old staff members, who treat him extremely nice. And he's like a foreign beggar. And they treat him extremely nice. They are like kind. They are like giving him some food, some basic clothes, like extremely like friendly, good human souls, we would say, right? Of course, on the other side, there are even some old staff members, some old servants and some maids who treat him with extreme disdain. They just like insult him. They even like physically abuse him because like he should go out of this house and all those things, right? And there we can not just see what type of person one is, but also what type of soul basically like one person has. If this is like a good person at heart, or like a person who uses his or her power over like a lower member of the society or of this hierarchy and abuses this power. At some point of the story, he reveals himself as Odysseus, and he has some bow, and he planned all the time with his son Telemachus how he should kill all those suitors, because of course they were outnumbering him. They found 2-3 loyal comrades, and with them all, and with the help of Athena, some goddess who helped him, they killed all of the suitors. And they not just killed all of the suitors, they killed also a lot of old staff members, because they were disloyal to his wife and his son, like to his house of Odysseus in general. Interestingly now, we come here now to a more theoretical, ethical aspect. I said before in 2 videos or 3 videos before in the Homeric ethics video that in the Homeric ethics, it's all about the action and decision you make. And when you decide to do a bad action, no matter the intensity, no matter if you totally make this bad action, like to 100%, or just even like to 20%, let's say, you make this bad action. So you're totally responsible for this. This is Homeric ethics. And he killed all suitors, no matter if the suitors, like there were of course some leaders from the suitors who like pushed the whole group on to feast more. And there were of course some suitors who had maybe some doubts that they should not do it, that it's like a bad action to just like take the money from another house to just all the time be in this house to try to marry the wife from another man. Of course, they think this man is dead, like Odysseus is dead, but okay. But this is like a bad action in itself. And Odysseus kills them all. And even he killed all his staff members, like the staff members who like danced with him or danced with the suitors or slept with the suitors, he also killed. And I find this extremely interesting that he makes no differentiation between intensity of wrongdoing. Like a wrongdoing for him is a wrongdoing, and he just punishes it with death. For example, in our time, I would now argue as an analogy that the main suitors, like those people who really organize this whole group, we would put, let's say, for lifelong jail, okay, just as a punishment. And some suitors who were just following those main suitors, we would probably put for 2 or 3 years in jail, right? Because intensity is much lower. In the Homeric ethics, it's different. They just get all killed because a bad action is a bad action, no matter the intensity. And the same with his old staff members, those people who collaborated with the suitors got just killed without any mercy. And this is just a different form of like ethics, but it was much more focused on the wrong action and the wrong decision one did. And of course, they had the wrong beliefs. They had the belief that Odysseus was dead. And because of that, they, of course, tried to take all his money, take all his food, take his wife even, right? And because of that, they made it. Like they had a wrong belief because Odysseus wasn't dead. And in our modern days, probably we feel we can't punish that so much because they had the wrong belief. But it doesn't matter in the Homeric ethics. They had the wrong beliefs, they made the bad action, because it's all about the bad action, and they did a bad action. And this was punished. And I think we can even also like, maybe not just judge others in our world, but maybe we can judge ourselves. Like fate is happening to us. And it all matters what action we do, what decision we do, right? It's not always, we have often excuses. We do a wrong action and then we will say, yeah, but only because we had a wrong belief. Like, right? But this is not working like this. This is like, I think, a really good way to judge oneself just by our actions, like what we did. It's not always by the outcome we should maybe judge ourselves, but just by the action itself. Look at them over there. Not a care in the world. Just lyres and tunes. It's easy for them, all right. They feed on another's goods and go set free. A man whose white bones lie strewn in the rain somewhere, rotting away on land or rolling down the ocean's salty swells. But that man, if they caught sight of him home in Ithaca, by God, they had all prayed to be faster on their feet than richer in bars of gold and heavy ropes. These words are coming from Telemachus, Odysseus' son, in the beginning of the book. And this shows another moral point, what the suitors are doing wrong, because they are doing wrong, like a concept we would call in our days, to live rent-free. And that means, basically, that they just consume and never produce. They just take and never give, right? Like they are living in this apartment but don't pay rent, because they are living rent-free off of someone else's money or wealth or home or whatever. And this is another like moral aspect we should not do in our own lives, to not live off another person's products and never give back, to just consume, to not produce. Of all that breathes and crawls across the earth, our Mother Earth breeds nothing feebler than a man. So long as the gods grant him power, spring in his knees, he thinks he will never suffer affliction down the years. But then, when the happy gods bring on the long hard times, bear them he must, against his will, and seal his heart. Our lives, our mood and mind as we pass across the earth, turn as the days turn. In the Odyssey and in the Iliad, or in general in the Homeric age, fate is a major topic. It is like that fate is always happening to humans, not so much that humans always act by their own free will to do like X and Y. It is more that fate happens and then those humans react. And that's why there's such a big focus on how one is reacting. And I think this is also really important nowadays. How do we react to things, right? It's about our actions, it's about our decision. And also here, what we can see is that fate is happening if we want it or not, right? Life plays out in front of us if we want it or not, and there will be hard times. And then we can think to the beginning of this video that we talked about comfort, that we talked about endless pleasure, endless comfort, and that we can probably equal with security, right? Like a secure life is what many people want. But in a secure life, most people grow weak, right? Because no one is used anymore to some hardships. So maybe instead of security, like to strive at security or a secure life, maybe we should strive at strength. Because when we are strong, we learn to deal with uncertainty. We learn to deal with hardships. Like we experience already like some life journey. Because there will not be only good times, there will come also bad times. And both of those times we have to deal with, right? And when we can't deal with the bad times, the good times probably will not come again. So we have to learn to deal with the bad times. We have to get strong. And I hope with this video I could bring you some of those Homeric values, of those Homeric virtues. Of course, more indirectly, they are not like now titled as like courage or kindness or something like that, but they're more indirect through stories. But I think we can learn a lot from Odysseus, right? Especially in our modern times, especially this comfort versus challenge topic. That maybe the next time we have the option to go for comfort or like for the extra way, for the extra challenge, maybe we should choose the challenge. This is, of course, always up to each one of us what we choose. And of course, I will not here make some decisions for you and you will not make some decisions for me. But it's all about to sometimes be inspired by some books, especially I would say, by some great stories like the Odyssey, what this is in my case, the case. And sometimes we could think probably, what would Odysseus now do? And Odysseus would most likely choose a meaningful journey home. Now, I'm really interested. What do you think about this video? What do you think about the Odyssey? Have you read it already? And if yes, what would you think, like what do you find the most fascinating about this book? If you didn't have read it yet, then I would really recommend you to read this book as fast as possible, because it's a great book which can teach you something about ethics and virtues and how to be probably also like a better human, like a good human, not always to be better, but like just a good human. Yeah, and like to make good decisions or like the better decisions. Thank you so much for watching this video today. I hope I will see you in the next video. If you want to watch some other videos about the Homeric age, here is some playlist about the Ethics and Virtues series, including the Iliad and a more theoretical video about the Homeric ethics. Thank you again, and I wish you a great day.